Travis?
Jeff.
Okay. He and his partner.
Don't you attack him on the shoulder?
One's going to graduate in December, and the other he's going to graduate in May.
Usually they poke their hand out.
We need to tell him. Jeff? Jeff, we ready, bro? We good?
All right, we'll go ahead and get started then. Welcome everybody to the September 4th meeting of the City Council Business and Community Affairs Committee. Today we have two items on the agenda. The first being a presentation and discussion regarding the Westwood Master Plan. I believe Mr. Jason Olson is here to give us a presentation, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Jason Olson, Director of Parks and Recreation. It's been a little over a year. We engaged GSB. We put actually our RFP out for Westwood Master Plan to talk about what the future of the park would look like. And this was mainly to focus on the golf course, the tennis area. GSB, which is out of Oklahoma City, they were the architect that was selected. We have gone through a full process of this and went through a steering committee, worked with them for about a year, off and on, and then ultimately went through park board. We have presented this to council one time, but we just wanted to come through here. We got a little cut short that night, so we just want to come here to do a little bit more in-depth discussion, and that was with the consultant. I think there's some stuff that I can clear up on. There was questions about on our own, the kind of a viewpoint of programming and where things might lie and how we would develop a business plan and a programming plan if this ever did come to fruition. So first picture here right now is, this is Westwood as it currently is right now. Satellite picture right there. We do have the floodway and the 100-year floodplain that was highlighted right through there. That is Markle Creek. That kind of highlights right there, and we do take a lot of water off of the airport, and that kind of eventually goes to our irrigation pond that's right there. We do have an irrigation pump house that does eventually pump that out. We even filter and somewhat pump some chemicals in there to kind of take out the negative stuff that would affect the golf course to kind of get it better where it would more add nutrients and things that the golf course, that the grass would need. And we do a pretty decent job in the past few years of keeping everything off of the water system, but that pond is starting to get a little old and it's starting to silt, so it does need a little bit of work. Not to mention that the early 2000s is the last time that Westwood, the golf course the course itself, not any of the buildings there, had a capital improvement plan. It was about a $2 million project. They went through there and changed some of the holes, redid some of the irrigation around there. Your lifespan on any irrigation systems max is somewhere around 20 to 25 years. So we're hitting the end of a life on there. And if anybody knows a lot about golf courses, the golf course lives and breathes off of its irrigation. When you start talking about greens, certain greens, if they do die at a certain point, it either takes a long time to grow them back, or it's about $200,000 to $300,000 per green to get the bent grass shipped in to replace that. So it is a living, breathing animal, very expensive to maintain and keep looking good. We have a skeleton crew out there that keeps the golf course looking really, really good for what we got. And big thing is, to us, we have about 35,000 rounds that go through there a year. We like to take a lot of pride in being a very affordable option. Sometimes when people start thinking about golf and tennis and the things that are associated with that, sometimes not everybody financially can afford that. That's what's perfect about a concept of a municipal course or Westwood. We want to make sure that everybody, no matter your age, demographics, where you live, how much money you make, or what part of town you're in, Westwood's a great place for you to come and learn and play golf. Our green fees for kids are about $7, and that's very affordable. If you start talking about adults with cart, you're right around $50 if you don't want to walk. So also very affordable. Just to give you a kind of comparison, Trails, which is private, and OU, well over $100 to play 18 holes. So we want to make sure we maintain that and the affordability, and also have a good product to provide to our public. When you start looking at the older infrastructure, especially our golf clubhouse, it's over 50 years old. It was designed at the same time of Oklahoma City golf courses by the same architect. They all had the same form, shape, look. Oklahoma City is now, they don't have any of the old clubhouses left. They're renovating their last clubhouse. So we're getting to that point where we're like the last of a dying breed here in the metro area, and it's not necessarily something that's to brag about. So kind of want to go over, as we worked with our steering group, and that was our main input we got from the public. Our park board appointed the steering group, so usually when we do a master plan, we do a system where the council member in that ward nominates somebody along with the park director. Then we also let the user groups nominate somebody and along with the park board. And then we ended up with 7 people that we think was a pretty well-rounded group that had a lot of input on it. This is the final design that we got back in through them. This has been approved all the way through or given a recommendation from park board. When you start looking at our older layout, you see our big tent right there, which is our indoor tennis that has 2 courts. We think by the time we get to that was replaced in about 2018, 2019. By the time we probably get to this project, if it is a Norman Ford 2, just making a lot of assumptions there, if that does get passed, we think we probably in sometime 2032, 2035 range of actually doing this. So we're kind of at the 15-year point where that old tent structure that's probably about the beginning of its end of its lifespan. So we're not necessarily doing something that's too crazy or taking out a new structure. But those temporary structures or tent structures are made for about 15 to 25 years. Our clubhouse, like I said, it was put in, I believe, in the late 60s. So kind of expiring on there. We also have way expired on that. We also have our golf maintenance, which is right next door to our clubhouse, which I'm not sure if you can see, but you start getting up there just south of the tent and tennis courts. That's where maintenance is and where our clubhouse is. Typically, you don't see your maintenance area by the clubhouse. You want to keep that separate. There's a lot of noise that comes along with it, kind of a lot of, you're in a maintenance yard, you don't typically want people to see all the stuff that should be happening way in a hidden corner into a golf course. But as we started working with our group, this is kind of what we came up with a lot of input. We toured 3 different golf courses, including Kicking Bird, a couple of the new Oklahoma City courses. We went there to early line right before it opened. It was the same architect group which we used on this one. As you can see, that if you start off at the upper right-hand corner, that's where golf maintenance is proposing where to go. We did have the old juvenile center there. It was there for ever. That recently got taken down about 3 or 4 years ago. So we have an open lot right there. There will be some work that needs to be done. That's kind of on the corner of the floodplain, and we do have a little bit of a creek there, so there might be some work that needs to be done in that course, make sure that we still have water flow coming into the property. But the main focus on everything would be over here towards left. New pickleball facility right there on the top, right next to an indoor tennis. That's 4 courts. We have, I believe, 8 pickleball courts that would go inside there. New clubhouse, same somewhat general area, but also tilted to angled to go back and towards the driving range. Golf cart storage, which we've talked about, even possibly having a place where you can go grab a beer or a sandwich directly out that window. In the clubhouse, discussions kind of going back and forth between do we want a banquet area or do we want a restaurant? Kicking Bird, when we went up there, they did have a restaurant. They worked with a local restaurateur up in Edmond that does a meal and a few other well-known restaurants around Oklahoma City. They actually told us they pay about $50,000 a year in lease and then give back another 5% of total revenue back to there. So it's a very good, lucrative area for the city, which is kind of would match somewhat similar in a neighborhood of what we produce off of net revenue right now. But we would if we did that, we'd love to talk about the restaurant. We would put that out to bid if we actually did put a restaurant in there. Talk to Councilmember Peacock about it. He thinks that with the neighborhood being really close, that'd be a great advantage having a neighborhood restaurant in there where they can walk to. Also, when you start talking about 24th and Robbins right there, that is one of the busiest intersections, of course, in the city. So we get a lot of traffic, and as we rearrange and kind of reposition the facility as a whole, we would have a new main entry, which we don't have an entry use. You can clearly see right now from anywhere of Westwood. It kind of got eventually tucked behind all this office development that happened in the 70s. Kind of give us a new entrance and something that's actually viewable from the street view. Have 12 tennis courts right there, which is what we currently have, which would keep us qualified for a lot of USTA events, United States Tennis Association. Everything else we'll kind of go over a little bit more as we kind of go to this next slide, and you kind of get a little bit more close-up shot of it. We'll have covered hitting tees for the driving range. One of the cool things that we recently found out, they've had at Earlyline, which is the latest renovated course up in Oklahoma City. In May, they did $60,000 in sales just for driving range tokens. And just kind of give you a reasonable idea, $60,000 in 1 month is what they did previously before the renovation. The biggest change that they had there was covered hitting ranges, along with the ability to light up the driving range at night. We've kind of talked about that, and we don't know if that will enter, but if it does kind of enter, or have the possibility of a lit driving range, we would work with sports lighting, like a Musco or some kind of specialty sporting light company. They are very good at getting light in and kind of minimizing light pollution. And I meant to, now that I'm talking about it, I meant to add one of the pictures in there, but I can show everybody a little bit later, or I might be able to bring it up as we discuss. But like when you go look at football fields or baseball fields or soccer fields or stuck in the middle of neighborhoods, the ability of you getting directional light from these sports lighting companies and how little light pollution that they're able to produce, well, I mean, it's amazing. And I mean, very directive light, LEDs, low powered, and the way that they are able to guard it and not put light out onto neighborhoods it's kind of mind-blowing, the technology of lighting, sports lighting, that's kind of advanced over the past 10 years. And the same thing over there when we start talking about tennis. Currently it is right up against Robinson, moving it down and having indoor tennis and indoor pickleball up there. It does give a little bit, it blocks the wind. We have a lot of wind problems that kind of tear through our wind covers that we have out at tennis right now. We have to replace those on a pretty regular basis. Also, it'll help out a lot with the street noise. It gets kind of loud, as you can imagine, trying to play, do your sport or your leisure thing out there as right next to ongoing traffic. This is a kind of, we like to try to connect this as well as we can. We kind of wish that we would have, if we can go back in a time machine, we would have loved to do a Westwood master plan before we actually did the swimming area. But we're trying to fit everything in there as good as we can. We don't know what the architectural will necessarily look like to match what's going on at the swim. Also, we do have some challenges if we're talking about pedestrian traffic, trying to connect everything there. And as you probably could figure out at the swim, especially during the summer, we're packed out there. Over 100,000 people walk through those doors every summer, and most of them are kids. So we want to make sure that we figure out how to do this and protect pedestrian traffic as much as possible. When you start looking at that possible parking area on the back, extra 138 spaces, that was thought of as an area maybe to park some of our employees for both golf and tennis during the summer months, which is our super busy month, that have them parked and save as much parking as possible out there in front for swimming or out there for tennis. Did go over a few other scenarios if needed. Just kind of show you to when we do a master plan. This is just a concept basically to get us to an election if we have one. And to fully give us a little bit more background and full knowledge of what the public wants, and to a somewhat accurate cost estimation. That was some of the stuff that, when you remember back to some of our projects during the original Norman Ford, our biggest problem is like construction was way more expensive than what we anticipated. Lessons learned, we want to go through here and master plan for $30,000 to $50,000 and go over a bunch of these projects and have a full concept and understanding of what the public wants, how it's going to be built out, and then along with that, an accurate cost estimation. The $30,000 to $50,000 that we spend on these plans is a heck of a lot better than being $10 to $15 million off when we actually draw this up and put it out to bid. So it's part of the reason. So just kind of showing you a little bit more options. It is possible for more pedestrian flow, we could possibly move these tennis courts and have the 12 stacked right next up to the aquatics area, a little bit more on-street parking. When you start talking about Fairway Drive right there on your left side, and then that would open up a little bit more parking closer to the clubhouse, and I think that might satisfy some of our golfers, which we've heard a little bit of feedback on that. And two, it's also possible to do a little bit more rearranging to make sure that the flow between golf, tennis, and swimming might work out a little bit better. And two, as we start talking about, and I'll show you on the next slide, that it's not necessary or 100% as we work through these projects, even though this comes with an estimated $54 million price tag. We haven't done a master plan yet where we've gotten fully funded for the whole project. Usually these things will come in a couple of phases. So just for instance, if you have $54 million project, if in Norman Ford too, as that goes to the election, or as we go to election, if there's $30 million attached to that project or to the Westwood project, that's what we will build to. So certain areas of this won't get completed on the first time. We would just kind of do what we can for $30 million, just using fake numbers, by the way. It's not really what we're actually going to attach to this. I have no clue. But if it was $30 million, we attach that $30 million to there, and then we would understand what we would need if we had another bond election to either finish this or whatever a delta would be. This next slide is kind of making the full assumption that if we did fully build out everything that showed up there in that corner, there would have to be some slight changes on the golf course to kind of make sure that we satisfy whatever we have designed. The first one, when you start talking about the practice range, when you build a practice range in the late 60s, and technology with golf changing now, in the late 60s, if you were hitting 220, 250 yards, you're doing pretty good. Now I can, which I'm very amateur, if I get lucky every once in a while, I can easily hit 250 yards with a driver. People that are really good are now hitting balls easily 300 yards. The practice range is not long enough. Is basically what I'm saying. We have people that are flying over the range and going on to what is our third hole right now. So we would like to extend that range a little bit, make sure that there's a proper room. That would, for how long people are hitting it now with the technology you have with golf clubs. So a little bit of rearranging on some of that. So that would change a few of our holes. We would swap 1 and 10 to kind of match the feng shui that we would have with the golf clubs or golf clubhouse being there. So we would have 1 and 18 ending right next to the clubhouse. And if we did add that additional parking, we would have to readjust number 9, which would still be a par 3. And now instead of hitting towards the water park, we would hit from east to west, or my bad, south to north. They also, one of the big things that when we start talking about what would be ideal in a golf course if we got a little bit of redesign done is our maintenance group is very small. We have 6 full-time people out there that takes care of 120 acres. It's very difficult for those 6 people to keep up with how much grass grows and, mowing the greens on a daily basis, raking bunkers, keeping those bunkers up to par. There's drainage in all of those. You have to go out there and rake it. You have to weed eat. There's a lot of things that go with this. So one of our things when we start talking about the possibility of redoing that is how can we minimize maintenance? One of the things that the golf course designer was working on this project talked about is back in the 80s and 90s, there was a big trend to try to hide all of your creeks and everything because you start talking about a little bit different type of maintenance because you have to go down there and knock down the weeds and the grass growing on your creeks and ponds. What they've discovered by burying everything, that actually made it more difficult because you can't see where you have a break. You also, this ground that you're constantly driving over in all kinds of wet conditions, dry conditions. You're driving over with golf carts. It is not good with what is happening underground. So you have a lot of breaks and grounds shifting. You have a wet season like you did today. There's a lot of things that change naturally, which you can't really have a whole lot of say in. So they're saying it's actually better to have all those creeks and things where they're viewable. So they're saying, hey, let's take out all the underground drainage and make everything back to how it probably was originally. So we were take out all the underground piping, open up our creeks. We also talked about redoing our pond, basically doubling the size of water capacity that goes along with that. Retreading it, make sure that we're good for another 40 or 50 years along with that irrigation pond. And once again, lessen our dependency on actually using Norman water with this. As much water, so you imagine every time we irrigate, about 60 to 70% of that water, of course, goes in the ground, but we still have runoff that goes back into the creeks. And the idea is making sure getting everything going the right directions and draining the right way and getting slopes correctly. We recapture a lot of our irrigation water and recapture all the rainwater and a bunch of water that's coming off the airport that ends up draining down towards Westwood. These are just kind of a couple of the aerial looks that go along with this. Not necessarily what the buildings would look like. This is kind of matching somewhat the metal roof look that we had going on at the aquatic center. This is if we had all the courts running east and west. Kind of talking about a different configuration if that's how we go in the future. Completely different angle for that. And kind of threw this out, I think the last time we were there. If we did everything, we're talking about $54 million to redo everything in there. And once again, there's not been one single master plan that we did, at least with Norman Ford one, that we covered the whole cost of it. We did, you go back and look at Griffin, which is probably, if you threw a percentage on it, that's probably our highest percentage that we completed on any one of our Norman Ford projects at the first time. And I would say we probably did about 60% of that. So I would say even in a best case scenario, if we catch this up and, it does fall in Norman Ford too, and we get $35 million attached to this project, I don't think it's realistic to think that we're going to get all $54 million. Even if we got $54 million in 2030, you can kind of see where the escalation kind of kicks in. You can kind of count on 3% of your escalation on construction costs happening every single year. So, and that's on a tame year. I mean, when you started talking about 2020, when you went through COVID and then other world conflicts that happened, and you saw 30% going on in 1 year. So we're trying to be conservative and hopefully it doesn't go too nuts. And then when we talk about everything that would happen, just like any other facility, Parks and Rec would keep on operating this internally. As that would happen, we would work with the neighborhood, we would work with user groups, we would come up with a brand new business plan, figure out how many people, because we think it would change, because by investing all this in there, I think that you start talking about your revenues start changing, the amount of people you need to work there would start changing, everything from operations to maintenance. we would redo a business plan, try to figure out as best as we can of what that business plan would look like. And then when we start talking about an operations plan that would fit inside of a business plan, how would we operate? What would our hours be? What would it look like if we had a lighted driving range? What events that we would have? What can we do to make sure that we don't conflict or disturb our neighbors that live around Westwood? What fits in better? Is it a banquet hall? Is it a restaurant? This is all stuff that we don't know yet, but as we start looking at this, and if it does come to fruition, we want to make sure that we work with council, we work with our neighbors, and we work with the resident groups and user groups to develop a business plan and an operations plan. And it's me talking for way too long. Love to take any questions.
No, I appreciate you coming back and presenting some of this. I mean, I think you and I met privately and I expressed some of my concerns, but I'm going to throw them out there so everybody kind of knew where my pressure points were. But from the neighborhood perspective, they were concerned with sound and light coming from the driving range or anything that's, operating kind of after dark. So making sure that we put reasonable hours on those and some guardrails around it to ensure that, it's not intrusive to the neighborhood. The parking that was just southeast, that additional parking that we talked about staff, there was concerns about that. And so I pitched the idea to you, Jason, about maybe shifting that to on-street parking along Fairway Drive there, same amount of parking spaces, just kind of pulling them out away from the soft edge between the water park and, the golf course there. Personally, I really would like to see a stronger pedestrian connection. I've mentioned that if you line up the front door of the pickleball facility with the front door of the swim complex and made that kind of a pedestrian access that went north and south, and then doubled that with an east-west access that led basically between the tennis courts to the golf clubhouse, trying to keep all pedestrian circulation in the middle, all the vehicular traffic to the outside. That should come as no shock to anybody who knows me. But other than that, I think it's a really solid plan. I love the idea of providing a restaurant amenity. I mentioned, I live close to here and I would walk to this restaurant whether I'm playing golf or tennis or not. I think it would be used by the neighborhood and other people quite a bit, regardless if they're there to play golf. So I do think the covered hitting tees would be really popular and also a great thing. Just got to make sure we put the kind of guardrails on it that keeps the neighborhood happy or keeps them from getting upset, I guess is a better way to put it. So outside of that, though, I think it's a great plan. There's some things to be teased out and we actually do the full design of it. But that's where I was coming from. Happy to take any questions or thoughts from anybody else.
Councilmember Peacock, one of the things that we wanted to talk about too is when talk about Fairway Drive, when we redid the water park, there was talks about taking Fairway Drive back through the neighborhood and taking traffic through there to another light. Just want everybody to know that there's 0% chance of us ever bringing that up again or talk about that again.
Can you repeat the percentage?
0.
Thank you.
There is not going to happen. Everybody thinks that they've been to scary neighborhood meetings. I would promise you, as a staff member, that was one of the scariest ones I've been to. So
well, I alluded to you. That was one of the reasons I ran for council originally 6 years ago. Was that issue right there? I got a lot of hot neighbors about it.
So when you start talking about the possibilities and exiting out of the park, one of the ones that we kind of look at is right here, like T Drive. We do have a lighted intersection right here. So hopefully at some point in time, we can figure out how to gain this access and take out this roundabout and connect that back to Fairway Drive. And it'll be a possibility to have a safe south exit from the park. And you start talking about everything else. We still need a traffic study, and I got all of our friends from Public Works in here, and I like to say I'm an engineer, but I'm a fun engineer. That means I have nothing to do with math. So I would make an assumption that this would be a right turn only, and we would have an entry over here. Still discussion trying to figure out how this turn in right over here between the bank and mattress store, how that would work out. And we would still have your traditional entry into the park, main entry, or what is the main entry right now? The main entry, once again, would shift up to Robinson. But traffic study has not been done yet.
Thank you. Councilmember Graham.
Yeah, I was running a little late. I don't know if you talked about it, and I know I sent it, and there was some discussion back and forth between a Ward 2 constituent about restoring Merkle Creek as much as possible. Still in the plans to do that?
I think what the cool thing, I think that you start talking about, especially being a Parks Department project, we want to get back to everything being as natural as possible. I think that you went through a different kind of trend 30 years ago where they were not so much worried about natural looks, they were worried about efficiency. I think we found out that there's not a whole lot of efficiency being saved by doing some of the underground stuff. And we prefer, and we know our constituents prefer as much as possible the natural look. So yes, as much as we can restore our creeks and waterways, as much as possible, yes, we want to restore it as we can.
And I think he was honing in on the fact that kids used to play in the creek, and he'd like to see that happen again someday. So again, for the neighborhoods.
And that would probably be off-site because we don't, you don't want kids running around with golf balls flying in the golf course. Come here.
My kids definitely play in Merkle Creek.
Yeah.
Mayor Holman, Holmes Country Council.
So I do like the idea of the street parking along Fairway there and not doing that parking lot down there if possible. And then, yeah, reorienting and having tennis courts right there at the south end and maybe having more parking there in between. But if we do that, I definitely agree that prioritizing the pedestrian connection between all three of the facilities, or tennis, golf, pool, and being able to go from one end to the other and trying to line up the entrances, that I think is a good idea too. And then wherever possible, having the raised, I think that's with those lighter raised crossing there, crosswalk. So really just prioritizing pedestrian connections through the whole park. And then you mentioned before that the orientation of the tennis facility, I mean, it does depend on the IMSA station, and uncertain whether they will sell it or give it up or anything like that.
And we own it. There is that property belongs to Westwood. So the
lease or agreement with them.
there, back again, we've went through and tried to find an agreement. Best we can tell, there was a handshake agreement at some point in time, but being a good partners and with them being, Norman Region being a trusted city, we would definitely be working with them to find a solution to replace the IMSA station somewhere else.
So that isn't something that hold it up, other than we don't want to just kick them out.
Correct.
Out another spot. So, okay.
I would think ambulance service is a higher priority than.
So the connection to Robinson right there on Fairway, that would just be a matter of whether traffic engineers think it's something we should do.
Correct.
Okay. I definitely like the connection to the T circle, the cul-de-sac down there. I think that's good. And I mentioned too, I know the current plan or idea would be to remove the playground at Westwood, but it'd be cool to still have one somewhere around in there in the middle. I don't know, for kids that want to, maybe not next to Robinson like the current one is, but somewhere around there to still have some kind of playground. It's not the pool. It's dry, so. And I see some people out at that park sometimes on that playground. So, but other than that, I agree with Councilmember Peacock that pretty good plan overall, and doesn't, like you said, doesn't have to be all done in one big chunk. Maybe multiple years of phases and stuff. So, and it may evolve as that goes through. So, and is there, especially if we don't do that parking lot there on the bottom, is that give some more room or possibility for expansion of the water park in the future? If we wanted to
So
add some
you're-
more slides or something, or?
That's a really good question.
And if we were expanding, what would we be expanding the pool to?
So, we already, when we did this renovation, in 2016, 17, we have, underground piping that's already installed into the park in this area right here. The original idea would be some kind of slides. We've talked about the possibility of like a flow rider, which is the surfing machines. All that's possible, and that would be in this little area right here, and that's even plumbed, and we have it stubbed up inside the pump house. All we have to do is get the feature in, whatever that is, and put motors in the pump house, and we're actually ready to roll on that one. But yeah, any expansion for the water park would be right here in this little corner right there.
And
But if we don't do it over here, if we don't put this over here, of course we could, there's always the possibility of adjusting it and putting some out there.
I mean, I like the idea of rearranging the course some and having holes be different and changing it up as part of the plan too. I don't really play golf, but I think it'd be cool to change it up like that. And then Fairway Drive from the neighborhood where it goes to that cul-de-sac and dead ends. What is the purpose of that road? Is it used for anything?
So
Could it be turned into a pedestrian?
David might be able to answer this a little bit more
Yeah.
than I can, but that,
Seven houses
Would it face it?
Yeah.
Okay.
on
Okay.
the
They drive
west side of it.
that's, I
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was their.
believe that was Old 24th and,
I think so.
and that used to curve all the way back around up to Robinson.
Okay. So.
And when we built the park, we cut it off.
Yeah. Okay.
I also mentioned too, and I forget to talk about this, our 6 or 7 maintenance guys, the plan would be to close down the Westwood completely for probably around a year to do the renovation, but there would be a lot of savings because we'd be using our maintenance guys as a construction crew to go through there and work. We
Not
put them to work
the-
doing some of the work
Just
out there.
the golf course.
Mhm.
Not the pool. Pool and step.
Yeah, the pool does not stay up, the golf course, it wouldn't affect the pool would be open its regular schedule, the golf course would be closed, and we would also need to figure out a phasing time to make sure that we disrupt tennis the minimum amount of possible, so probably start in the winter and move the court, or move the tennis courts, because we can get the tennis courts, outdoor tennis courts done relatively quick.
Councilmember Grant?
Yeah, I was gonna say, speaking of like what the public would support, could we do surveys like we did for the bridge bond where we kind of give them a selection of, do you want to pay over 10 or 20? Not quite like bridge bond, but you know, what parts do you want to see first? And what are you willing to support for this?
Yeah, I believe that would happen. There's a group that's working on Norm Forward too, and they're trying to put together what I would call a diverse package of all kinds of different projects. And before we would go to vote, I would hope that we would work on surveying through the city to find out what's a priority, because you want to put together the best package and attach the projects and the amounts to those projects that are most likely to get a yes vote. We would hope to do that.
I remember when they did Westwood, the swimming complex, there was very much, they gave us a menu of items, and it was like, do you want big slides? Do you want a lazy river? Do you want all, and kind of
And what year you
mailed
want to
it,
see that?
absolutely, I mailed in what the priorities were, and so, and I think that informed, I think we got what the residents voted for on that one, so. Yep. Well, if there's no other questions, I mean, do you have what you need from us at this point?
Yeah, from what I'm understanding, that we're good to go, maybe add the slide in there this extra slide, and then also with the notations that we talked about, pedestrian traffic, it needs to be a priority along with connecting areas from pickleball down to the swim complex, and maybe even a triangle of the golf course clubhouse connected to that.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll make those notes.
Excellent, well, I appreciate the presentation. All right, item number 2 is a discussion regarding the small developer training sponsorship proposal. And I don't know that we have a presentation, or is this open discussion?
Open discussion.
Okay.
We've got Jane.
Hi. Okay, well, I'll go ahead, I'll launch this because this was an idea that I brought to the retreat, so I'm pretty familiar with what we're talking about here. Essentially what this is a proposal from the Incremental Development Alliance, which is a group that trains and equips small-scale developers to go do small-scale development. They have a menu of offerings. They can do lectures, they can do workshops, they can do boot camps. I am proposing that we do all three, with the City of Norman being the anchor sponsor for the entire slate. We would need to find a series of sponsors to make up the delta on the fee. I've got a good handful already. Feel really confident that we can make up the difference in whatever the fee is. But really, the goal is they would come in and they would do, the first step would be a lecture for 200 to 300 people where we would talk about what incremental development is, try to equip people with some language, some common vocabulary to go out and, you know, start talking about this stuff. Those that were interested from that initial lecture, we would do a full day workshop for 100 to 150 people where we would take those same conversations and kind of expand on them a little bit. And the final step would be to do a full-on boot camp. And this boot camp would be from anywhere from 35 to 50 people where we would teach them zoning, teach them how to do a pro forma, teach them how to do a bank preparation, teach them how to do the pitch, teach them, basically equip, like I said, 35 to 50 small scale developers to go out and do really cool infill projects in Norman. And so I always like to talk about Cameron Brewer and the Standard because Cameron Brewer was a graduate of the IncDev boot camp. And I think the Standard was a product of that experience. Going through that, being equipped as a small developer showed him what you can and what you can't do. And we have the Standard as a result of it. And my kind of very optimistic view, if we could train 35 to 50 Cameron Brewers to go out and do 35 to 50 more standards in Norman, I mean, I think we're really on to something. And so it's, you know, this is the small scale developer. This is not the big home developer. This is not the guy that's going to build, you know, 10-story condo building on Main Street. It's the small infill kind of one-off projects, but equipping our own residents to go and do those things versus hoping that an outside developer is going to come in and do those in Norman, I think is a much better, more sustainable approach. And if we only got 50 projects, it'd be a success. But I think that these people would be doing project after project after project. So, Councilmember Grant.
Yeah, I think this is really cool. One of the things I was looking at is the in-person pitch session and optional supplier showcase.
Yes.
And I honed in on it because it sounds like it would help emerging developers encounter the full ecosystem, which includes financing. And on that note, there's somebody in Tulsa that does a CDFI that is interested in central Oklahoma. So I think that would be really cool because they really cater to social good projects, but also looking to help like the smaller developers, not for the big home builder. And I think it would open an opportunity to have a diverse pool.
That's, I mean, that's really where I'm coming from, the diverse pool, because, you know, small developer A has got different passions than B, and, you know, maybe one person does a restaurant, the other person does a cool, you know, small family housing type project. I think there's a lot of opportunities, yeah, to get some diversity in the type of projects we see, not just the same thing built over and over. So.
Yeah, so it sounds like that's optional. Is that something, like, how do we just say we want to do it?
It just increased cost, you know, so we'd have to probably find a sponsor to pick up that piece. I tried to really just pick the base 3 because I knew that was a tangible dollar amount, and felt like we got a lot of bang for our buck with that. But
I do think it would be super helpful to encounter the people that you could work with to actually make it happen.
yeah, I agree.
Like at the end of it.
Yeah, the ongoing support, you know.
So how quickly are you thinking? Like just as soon as we can identify funding or?
Pretty much, yeah. We had discussed, or I had discussed with the IncDev crew, potentially a mid-October kickoff with the workshop following 4 to 6 weeks after that, and the boot camp 4 to 6 weeks after that. So trying to build some momentum before the end of the year.
So I'm going to ask Jane. So Jane, with the I know we have our RFPs that you guys are scoring next week.
Great point, thank you.
So would there be a huge, do you see a big difference, like if we go now versus, okay, we adopt all the new zoning and subregs a year from now or a year and a half from now? Would we start all over again with the new process?
No, actually, I want to hear your answer, but my thought on this is that you equip not just the 35 to 50, but the 200 to 300. And then we let that inform some of the updates to the zoning ordinance. Because if we teach all these skills and then our policies and ordinance don't line up with the skills that we've taught, we've basically wasted our time. And so if we identify what the skills are and then set our policies and ordinance in such a way that, I'm not saying removes the barriers, but gets out of the way a little bit.
So can we back up just one step? Who do you see organizing the seminars or the workshops and stuff like that?
That would be the incremental development faculty.
Okay. Because I'm concerned with the staff that I have that will be involved in what we're doing for the RFPs right now.
Right.
I don't have a lot of bandwidth at that point. So I want to be 100% supportive of this.
Sure.
I just don't know who you want on this side to be supporting the incremental development alliance as they come in.
I think that would be at whatever level you're capable of, like whatever bandwidth we do have. To me, this is not to me, the city is a sponsor. This isn't necessarily a city committee. And so I don't expect city staff to necessarily have to run it. We would just be the anchor sponsor at the top of the pyramid, in hopes that all the education and everything that we're doing helps us inform the things that we're doing in the city.
So I don't want to assign somebody something that, but I know we have somebody that's very invested in the community, in the retail community that works for the city of Norman and would
Yes.
have a million contacts that
Yes.
could reach out to those individuals and stuff like that.
I think
So
she would be fantastic.
I think that would be an awesome
Yeah.
support.
I
role.
agree.
But I would love to talk to Shannon and, we can figure out some more stuff, but.
And the whole idea here is to not overburden city staff. I know we just got off AIM, you guys are probably still dealing with that trauma, and so I'm very cognizant of like moving this along, but not putting it all on your plate. So,
Yeah, I think that there's several people on staff that would be great to be that support layer as they come through, but I do think it would be them that would be taking the lion's share of
well, and that's where
announcements and recruitment
Yes.
and so on and so forth.
that's where the costs come in. They'll do all the marketing, they'll do all the scheduling, all the travel, all the coordination, everything, so.
Okay.
So we can get with Anthony, and Daryl.
Okay, awesome. Councilmember Grant.
Okay, and then just thinking about it a year from now, like people in theory have gotten formed, now they're going home doing their homework. Then we adopt new zoning and subregs next July or after July?
After July,
Okay,
yeah.
so,
But I think, and I could be wrong, I was reading this and everything, the things that they'll be teaching and educating isn't so much zoning, but it's all of the layers that are outside of that. And hopefully the zoning and the subregs that we get are going to be very easy, that anybody would be able to pick it up. And so if they have that financial information, if they have the platting information or whatever they needed on that side, they would be able to pick up the zoning code and it would just really mesh easily for them.
Right.
So,
I'm thinking, and just during the boot camp when people are, so in the boot camp, you will be working through an actual project. You'll have a piece of land, a project type, they'll put together the pro forma, help you go sell it to a bank, get financing and everything. And so during that process, if 15 of the small developers in that group say, well, we're running up against this. This is the thing that's keeping us from doing our project. Then we come and tell you, well, maybe we need to really look heavy at that one piece of the ordinance And
These
so
are the
it's,
red flags that are coming up
absolutely,
over
yeah,
and
yeah.
over again, and this is
Yeah.
what we need. Yeah,
what are the
I agree.
roadblocks? And, we only know that by teasing them out in reality.
Yeah, I
We can
agree.
talk about it in theory all day, but, it's like the guys, the people doing the work, boots on the ground. And, it's no secret, Norman has gotten a reputation of being difficult to develop in, and we're doing everything we can to fight that narrative.
We need
So,
to.
Councilor Dixon.
Would we be able to do some kind of a rebate for the additional sponsors we find to help fund this? Like if they do a project in Norman, kind of give them some of their money back as a refund if they're, to really incentivize doing these projects in Norman? Would we have any kind of a mechanism?
I think there is a way that you can. Yes, I don't have the answer, but yes, I think that there is a way to do it. And the idea is that we are training Norman residents. This is not, we're not recruiting people from Moore or Elm City to come down here. We're gonna have an open application process, it starts with the 200 to 300 people in the lecture, then you whittle that down to the 100, and then you whittle that down to the people that are really serious and really want to do the projects. And so at that point, if you do a project in Norman, I think there's a way to do what you're describing. I just don't have the answer for you. But the way I've kind of reconciled it in my head, I think whatever money we spend on this process, we will make that back in the sales tax generated by the materials alone on the first project that gets built.
Yep.
And then we would making money on the second project and the third project, and then they're bringing amenities, and then those businesses or whatever's in those buildings, they're creating sales tax. It's just spend money to make money.
I'm with you.
Councilmember Grant.
On that note, maybe if they take it and we're talking about all the processes of the city, we could talk about TIFs, and we already have implementation plans coming on the Center City one, but that's one where if somebody was taking this, they would have an in where maybe others don't, to understand how they could get some of that money.
Yep.
So even if they don't get a rebate, they have an opportunity to get in on a pot of money that other people are overlooking.
You have to be willing to do a project to access the money. And so, if we have more people doing more projects, then I think that's totally viable. All right, anybody else? Councilmember Montoya.
I think the idea is a great idea and it's really cool. But the anchor sponsor price tag gives me a little bit of heartburn. So I'll just put that out.
It's a large amount of money. It's $50,000. I mean, don't need to hide that or anything, but like I said, I think it's money invested in ourselves.
So I was curious about the community, because I was writing down, it's like investors, lenders, those are all Norman people that we're hoping to bring in. Community members, I was reading through their stuff on their website, so that could be neighborhood leaders. Where would the overlap be? I mean, just as a neighborhood leader, what do you think they would get out of it?
I think it's, like I said, it's anybody that's wanting to develop a small project. You do not have to be a developer or a banker or an architect or have no formal training. That's the idea here, is that we will equip everyday citizens to go be that,
So if somebody wants to do an Airbnb, I say. Or-
Yeah, I mean, seriously, ADU is a
Yeah.
great small infill project. I mean, I think that's
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah, that is, yeah. I have heard from the community that the cost, and even knowing how to go after that financing is a stumbling block for them, because that's not their background.
Right.
So,
It's really hard to come by this knowledge if you, how do I say this? The barrier to entry is very high. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
Whether that's financial barriers, physical barriers, knowledge barriers, skill barriers. The whole idea is to knock down all of those and make it easier.
So October,
That's trying to aim.
that's the next one, isn't it? I think there's one coming up in October.
I think so. Yeah, we tried to balance with the football schedule, and I think October 15th, 16th was a week that there was either not a game or an away game that didn't. I shouldn't say that. An away game that might not be heavily attended by Norman residents. So there'd be something to do in town. So All right, well, if anybody, nobody else has anything to discuss on that, happy to talk next steps with staff, kind of figure out what, what that looks like, but, if that's